morning. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Pitchside Chronicles. I'm Uncle Tats. Me with Robert and Donald. And joining us today is our special guest host, NFE. It's been a crazy couple of days on the rumor mill with the Yankees, actually. We got a little bit into it with NFE on 161 with the Avs live stream. I was able to jump on for a couple of minutes. Unfortunately, something happened at the house. I had to jump off. But there was this whole thing with the trade between Gleyber and Verdugo. And it actually, normally you just kind of just shrug shit like that off. It really aggravated me. It really did. Are we going to take our best hitter and send him within the division, no less, but to Boston for Alex Verdugo? It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. Even with our surplus of infielders, it doesn't come off like it would be a smart business decision, not even a baseball decision. I just think the narrative, with all the tension with the fan base in the front office, to make a trade with Boston, regardless of the player, is this really the way we want to start, the moves for the offseason? Like, what? Is it just me, or did this piss you guys off too? That became a headline.
I didn't believe it. I think it's just a rumor because I find it hard to believe the Yankees are going to trade Gleyber for anything but prospects or a pitcher. Verdugo would be a good fit here. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a good player. I don't know why people think he's crap. He's better than anybody that was in our outfield last year, except for there goes my voice again, except for Aaron Judge. But I don't think they'd do it because it'd be a rental for rental. And I just don't see the Yankees doing that. I don't know. I'm not trying to disprove any rumors, but that's what we get this time of year because the Yankees were interested in Verdugo at the deadline. The Red Sox like Torres. So, naturally people are going to put those two together. It's a 1-for-1 swap. Rental for rental. I don't see it happening. If it does happen, I'd be a little bit surprised, but I also wouldn't be mad. I would hate to see Gleyber in a Boston jersey, but I would take Verdugo on this team in a heartbeat right now because we don't have a left fielder. And we haven't had one for a very long time. Verdugo hits for power. He would have a good power season in Yankee Stadium. He's a gamer. He's a very likable guy. I know we hate watching him when he kicks our ass out a lot, but he's a high energy guy, and the Yankees can use some of that as well. So if it happened, I'd be like, I'm going to miss Gleyber. I'm going to hate to see him in Boston, but I also don't see that happening. If we get Verdugo, it'd probably be for a pitcher, someone like Clark Schmidt. That was the rumor at the deadline. They were going to offer Clark Schmidt for Verdugo. So that would be a little more interesting if they gave up a multi-year pitcher for a rental outfielder. That would be a little more like, whoa, what are you doing here? But if it's rental for rental, I mean, if they're not going to pay Torres, you might as well trade him. And if you can get a need for him, no, not the worst thing in the world.
So here, this is where I'm at with it. I would actually make that trade, but not a straight swap. I would need to add another prospect from the Red Sox to make that work. Gleyber Torres has a 2.9 WAR. Verdugo is a 2.6 WAR. There's not that much difference between the two. Even though Gleyber Torres' numbers are far superior to Verdugo, there's another factor to this. Even though I do believe the Yankees don't like Peraza, that would open up a spot for Peraza. Because are you really going to want to give Gleyber Torres about a 6-year contract? Do you want to do that? Because I don't want to do that. And that's no disrespect to Gleyber Torres, because I think Gleyber Torres was our best player last year offensively, discounting Aaron Judge. There's no question about that. But do you want to pay him another 6 years when you don't really know? Because he's quite up and down. He's quite inconsistent. 1 year he's phenomenal. Next year he's not. And I think the Yankees themselves have a lot to do with that. But you move him for Verdugo. You then have a solid corner outfielder. And then it opens a spot in the infield so you can move Peraza to second base. You've got Volpe at short. And third base, you can go and make that deal for Candelario if you want. Or I know Cashman really likes Chapman, whatever. That then opens up a spot for third base. You can add some power at third base. That makes sense. And then it also You could even have just DJ LeMahieu play third base. It doesn't, whatever. It opens up a spot in the infield because their infield is crowded. It's not that bad a move when you think about it. Adds a lefty bat. I like Verdugo. I like his energy. I think he's a gamer. I've always liked Verdugo's. Actually, to be honest, like I can't stand watching the Red Sox, but I enjoy watching him. I don't know why. I just think that he's a gamer, and I think that energy would rub off. And it's not a negative energy like Josh Donaldson provides. He's like more of a positive energy. I think that's a good thing for the locker room. I would not discount that, but I would need to be more than just him. I think you need to add another solid pitching prospect on top of that, and then I would make that move. Again, do you really want to pay Gleyber Torres? Tats, do you really think that he's worth that, like a 6-year, whatever he'd be wanting? He'd be wanting 20 plus mil a year, easy. You want to pay that for the next 6 years?
No, I don't think he's I don't. Yeah, I don't see him getting that long-term deal to where there's that comfort level where it was the right move. Like it's got. I'm at that point with this roster construction. I want the perfect fit, and Torres just hasn't been consistent enough to be the perfect fit. He's a good player. He could be a positive contributor to a team. But long term for the Yankees, with the direction we're going, I don't see it. And it sucks to say, it really does. I like, he puts a lot of work in the off season. The Yankees are the ones that screwed him up, putting him at shortstop just because he was drafted as one. So they felt like it was an easy move, to go from second to short. We all saw that debacle. But Hennessy, what was your initial reaction to the headline of the Torres Verdugo trade?
So my initial reaction to that trade was no way that's going to go down. I just personally, I don't see it happening. And I know a lot of guys are, a lot of fans are saying if they're going to trade Torres, you trade him for a pitcher. I would ask for a starting pitcher and a reliever. Personally, like I said, I wouldn't do the Verdugo Torres trade myself. There's other outfielders that the Yankees need to pursue, and there's a lot of names being thrown out there. So, we keep hearing about Juan Soto. We keep hearing about Cody Bellinger. Of course, Juan Soto is my top choice, and I hope the Yankees can pull off a trade. Although there's talks of Soto staying in San Diego, but I don't see that happening at all. They're in a little bit of a financial trouble. But if it was me personally, again, with the Gleyber Torres Verdugo trade, I wouldn't do it. And I think it was, who was it? I think it was Donald that said it, that he would ask for Verdugo and another player maybe. Right? Like a pitcher, possibly? Okay. Yep. That could be a possibility. But, just a straight 1-for-1, I wouldn't do it.
No, straight up, I wouldn't do it either. And I'm going to throw 2 names at you. If it's to kind of soften the blow of not only with trading within a division, which is usually not something that teams like to do, unless it's, to me, that comes off as desperation. Especially when we're talking about the names of Verdugo and Torres. As much as we're open to trading Torres, we still don't have the full feel of how the Boston fans are going to react to it as well. They might not like it either. What if they had attached, and I'm going to bring up 2 names, one or the other, of either a Brazier for the bullpen, or we try to get back Whitlock? How do you guys feel about that?
Boston saying no.
Boston.
Boston ain't giving up. They ain't giving up.
And it's not just for Gleyber. We would throw in, we would throw in something else as well. I just thought, while we were going around, I'm trying to figure out if this is going to work. And the reason that I'm willing to kind of entertain it a little bit is Verdugo really won't hit the wallet as hard as signing Bellinger. So, or the 1 year for Soto, and take the gamble of just trying to get Soto in the off season. Because with an agent like Boras, he's not signing. He's not signing a contract in the season. He's going to ride out until the off season, and he'll get a contract for 2025. So, do they try to not penny pinch, but kind of shuffle a little bit and have more money that they can allocate to bid out Cohen for Yamamoto?
Yeah, I think. Well, that's why a lot of people are bringing up Kiermaier. I think they can get two outfielders. They can get Bellinger and Kiermaier. And that that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I know people are like, Kiermaier, that's a terrible idea. He's actually not bad. If Kiermaier was our center fielder for a year and we had Bellinger and left, then Dominguez doesn't have to be rushed back. You can give him an entire season to just make sure he's 100%. Kiermaier's a Gold Glove outfielder. He's a lefty bat. He's going to get on base. He's going to steal bases. He's going to do a good job, and he wouldn't cost you that much. Now, if you trade for Verdugo and you sign Bellinger, it's kind of the same thing because Verdugo is going to be a little more expensive, but it's also 1 year. Guess what? Now you're not – and if Bellinger moves to first base when Rizzo's gone, you still have the future of Jones and Dominguez, or you could still pursue Juan Soto next season when he becomes a free agent. So there's opportunity there if you sign Bellinger, let's say it's a 5-year deal, whatever it may be, maybe even more, and you get a 1-year outfielder like a Kiermaier, or you trade for Verdugo, or it's a trade for Donovan or something, he'd be on the contract for a lot longer. But if you get a 1-year outfielder with Bellinger, that keeps the plan of Jones, Dominguez, Judge as your outfield for the future. And you don't have to rush Dominguez back. That's why Cashman said during that abomination of a press conference, he needs 2 outfielders because they don't want to rush Dominguez back, and nor should they. He needs to be 100% before he is back on that field. They cannot rush him back. So that's why if you got Kiermaier and Bellinger, that'd be great. If you got Verdugo and Bellinger, and let's say they do get Soto, if it's Soto and Verdugo, both 1-year guys, fine, because you keep your future plan and you're also still making a push for next season. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if they get Verdugo. If it costs us Gleyber Torres and we get something else in return, that's fine. I'm not gonna go crazy about it. I am gonna miss Gleyber because I like the guy, but the Yankees have not shown a willingness to pay him because they've tried to trade him now 2 years in a row. And once again, we're like, a week into the offseason, there's already rumors about him getting moved. I think he knows the writings on the wall. So if I was Gleyber Torres, I'd be like, look, just trade me. Either extend me or trade me. Like, enough is enough of this crap because it's been 2 years in a row, now going on 3, that you've been trying to move me. Either do it or let's talk extension. And someone mentioned it earlier. We have so many infielders in our system. We just drafted a couple, Lombard Jr. and Riggio. We have Arias, who's coming up he's going to be a quick riser. So there's a logjam in the infield, and there's Peraza. We still have LeMahieu under contract for many years, 3 more years. So, like, the writing's on the wall for Gleyber. If you're going to move him, you got to do it, and you might as well fill a need if you do move him. Now you can move him to the Marlins for a starter, but hey, if you can get an outfielder for Gleyber Torres, you might have to think about it.
So
one thing to throw to the discussion real quick, Donald, I just got one. Verdugo's salary for 2020, in 2023 would be $6.3 million. So he's not an expensive
not at all
acquisition.
I really like the point here that Mr. Acevedo here has, beginning a 12+ million year for Kiermaier. Keep Floro. He gives you the same defense, probably gives you better offense. And Medina agrees with him, and I agree with him too. To be honest, like, I know that Brian Cashman doesn't like Florial, but what would Florial give that, that's so much worse than what Kiermaier would give? The similar defense, similar athleticism. Florial has youth on his side, and I think he's got power on his side. So again, is there really a reason to go and get Kiermaier? But that's the big problem with Brian Cashman. He looks at a prospect who he doesn't really like that much, which offers exactly the same as a veteran, but at least he has upside. But he will always choose the veteran 100 times out of 100 because he thinks that, well, the veteran's proven it, etc., etc. But he misses the upside, and all that move 100% always goes wrong for Brian Cashman. When he takes a flyer on a veteran, 9 times out of 10, it's a complete bust for that reason. I think if you're gonna just do the Kiermaier Florial thing, keep Florial. I don't need Kiermaier. But let's look at a little bit more of the Verdugo Torres comparisons to see. And I'm with Tats here because it's quite interesting. If you could add a reliever to that situation or a AAA pitcher or something. I mean, Whitlock would be perfect. That would kill two birds with one stone. You're saving money, and then you could actually make a real attack on Yamamoto and Soto separately, and you're still making out pretty well if you could add a reliever to a deal. But looking at the comparisons here, they aren't completely dissimilar, these numbers. So one of the things that really stands out for me is Gleyber Torres. His OPS plus is significantly better than Verdugo's. Verdugo's got let's see, his OPS plus is 100. Gleyber Torres OPS plus is 118. So that's a significant plus in Torres right there. Batting average, Torres 273, Verdugo in the high 260s, 264. Verdugo 54 RBIs, Torres 68. Torres 13 stolen bases, Verdugo 5. Verdugo is a 420 slug. Torres 453, not that much difference there. OPS, Verdugo 745, Torres 800, Torres 163 hits, Verdugo 144. So, there's no question Torres is a much better hitter. Much better hitter. But there's not that massive a difference. But I can't do a straight swap. If I was Brian Cashman, I cannot do a straight swap. There's no way
I don't think the intention of the rumor was to be a straight swap. I think
exactly. That's why it's where I'm kind of with you. Yeah. If you could add a reliever to that package, you could even it up a little bit. As I say, a lot of the analytics guys will just look at the straight WAR, and Torres WAR of Gleyber Torres WAR of 2.9 to Verdugo's 2.6. You could say, right, well, give me a reliever, and we can even it up a little bit, and that could help the Yankees. It's something worth considering because you also have to look at the factor that if we don't make that deal, we would then need to look at other outfielders elsewhere for a trade. Because I think a Gleyber Torres for an outfielder trade is smart because then you don't need to be so desperate where you need to make a massive offer for Soto and Bellinger. You could choose one of the two. And make a deal for a separate outfielder via trade, and it frees up an infield spot. I think trading Gleyber Torres is the best bet because I don't see us giving him a new contract. I just can't see it. Not with the infield alignment as it is. It just doesn't really make sense. NFE, what do you think?
The other thing I was going to say, too, is my worry of trading Gleyber Torres to the Red Sox is that he would beat up the Yankees. That's the thing I'm most worried about, because you're trading him to a division rival, and usually that's not a smart move, typically, right? But I wouldn't do a one-on-one swap. I mean, there has to be more than Verdugo if that trade was to go down. But another trade that was rumored was Yankees were interested in Alec Burleson and Brendan Donovan. I don't know how you all feel about that. They're both young, controllable. They both come with controllable years. Burleson plays the outfield. He could also play first base, and Donovan would be a solid infielder. There was rumors swirling about that. I did like that idea of getting those two guys, and they would come on the cheap too, so they wouldn't be expensive options.
I like that
I mean,
option.
Damian goes his thing in Gleyber and Schmidt for Donovan.
That's interesting.
So I think that's that's the caliber of players that are going to be involved.
I mean, Cardinals need.
I'm not opposed to Donovan. You know, I started kind of getting into it where it's like that might not be the worst. You know, there could be worse options. You know, it's the trades just have to. Right now, it's just all speculate. Like we could just have fun. We could throw any name in the hat. You know, until the offseason really starts to get into full swing, where moves really start to happen. You know, it's just, well, you know, what about this guy? What about that guy? The other thing, one final thing I want to throw in with the Torres and Verdugo, and then I want to get into some other players' names. I don't want to talk about them for an hour. But they're both going into the final years of their stays with their teams. After this next season, they're both free agents. So you're not even locking into these guys long term. So that may also be a contributing factor to how the negotiations go between the Yankees and the Red Sox. So I think that also makes it interesting.
I like this Brendan Donovan idea because I'm looking at his numbers.
I'm really warm to it.
OPS plus of 115. So it's right there with Gleyber's. He only played 95 games and 11 home runs, 284 batting average. Slug is the same as Gleyber Torres. Obviously, a superior batting average. There is something here. There is something here with that move. That is something. And he's also quite versatile. Plays second, out, third base as well, Brendan Donovan.
And real quick, I was going to mention he's also a lefty bat, which is something.
Yes, he is a lefty bat.
We are desperate for lefties.
We match up really well with the Cardinals. We need, because the Cardinals, Burleson, I think Gorman's also a lefty. Burleson, Gorman, Edman, Donovan, they're all lefties. And the Cardinals need pitching, and Clark Schmidt fits them like a glove. We should be talking with the Cardinals all offseason. If we can get two of those guys, that would be fantastic. And we'd obviously have to make a pretty significant swap with pitching prospects, which we have a good amount of. And Clark Schmidt's a guy you can sell high on. If they don't get Bellinger, let's say they put all their money in the offseason towards Yamamoto and maybe like a closer like a Yuki Matsui or even Josh Hader, and they go on the cheapish, I guess you can call it cheap, to add an outfielder or two, the Cardinals have the keys to what we're looking for. So you can move Schmidt and maybe even, and then you can move Gleyber to another team like the Marlins to try to get another pitcher just to get some assets back. The Yankees have numerous ways to be creative this offseason and not have to spend a ton on a guy like Cody Bellinger. I like Bellinger. I think we should be going after him, but if you can't get him, the Cardinals have so much of what we need because NFE brought it up. Burleson could play first. We're going to need a first baseman after this year. That attacks a need. And again, even if we got, let's say it's Edman and Burleson. Edman can play third. He can play second. He can play the outfield. He can play short. But Donovan can play all those positions as well. And you're not hindering your future plans of Dominguez and Jones because we know that's what the Yankees want to do. Unless they're going after Soto, that means Jones is gone. And I don't think Soto's getting traded yet. But it doesn't hinder your plans. I love the way we match up with the Cardinals. That, to me, the whole Gleyber to Boston thing is all speculation. It's something to talk about. I don't think it's happening. If we're talking to anybody, we got to be talking to St. Louis. They have to be talking to the Cardinals.
Another team that they really should be engaged with is the Diamondbacks. They also have an outfield surplus. So those are the two teams that we really – I think those are two teams, if we're going to go if the Yankees really want to go more trade route than throw money into free agency and try to get controllable players, and really – which really should be the way they go. Because if you're going to throw money this offseason, towards Yamamoto, right? And I think we're all in agreement that that's our number one priority. Get the starting pitcher behind Cole. Rodon can't be trusted to be your number 2 behind him. Maybe a 3, but not a 2. And that'll also help ease the budget a little bit for when Soto does go into free agency. So it's that game of chess that we're always talking about, how baseball is more of a chess game than checkers. You have to think 3 moves ahead. If you spend all your money this offseason and just throw money at free agents to fix all these problems, you're going to have nothing left for the next year, because you also have to keep into, in the vault, all these other young kids that are coming up that might want to be held on to and get their contracts. So there's so much, you don't want to look so far ahead. I'm only looking one off season ahead. Try to budget with trades and plays with control as much as you can. If you have no choice but to go for the big free agent, then you do so. Don't settle. But you need to get that budget into the possibility of being able to put in a legitimate bid for Soto next year.
No, you're right.
Donald, what are you right?
I agree, man. I think you're right. The more I think about it, I think Brandon Donovan makes all the sense in the world for the Yankees. I really do. I think that's the way to go. I know that the Yankees like versatility. He gives you that versatility. He gives you a lefty bat. He gives you a high batting average. The numbers are negligible between him and Gleyber Torres. He only played 95 games. Gleyber Torres played like 140 plus, and 11 home runs in 95 games is not that bad. Like, if you give that over a whole season, he's going to hit 20 plus. Yankee Stadium, I can see him having having better numbers in Yankee Stadium. I like his versatility. He's got decent defense. I think that's the move to make. He's under club control, which means that we don't need to, because that's a problem with Verdugo. It would just be kind of a straight swap. You're still going to have to pay him. Brandon Donovan actually has control. I like that option. I think that's the way to go. You had a pitcher to make the deal work with the Cardinals. I think you make that move. And as I say, I do think Soto will be available this offseason. I think the Yankees will be pestering the hell out of the Padres regarding Soto, and I think it's going to get to a point where the Padres will have to consider it if the offer is good. I'd be surprised if they actually went into the season with Soto. I think you can make a deal with the Padres for him. Bellinger, the big question is, he's going to want a significant contract. Like, he's going to want 6 or 7 years, right? I really like Bellinger, and I'd make that move. But you also have to consider he was really bad for a couple years, then got it together. He's been kind of up and down, similar to Gleyber Torres. And it would be a very similar situation. It's like, do you trust that for that 6-year deal, he's going to be productive in all 6 of those years? I don't think you can make that trust. Soto, you can make that trust. So if I was to have a choice, I go all out for a trade for Soto and Brandon Donovan.
Does the fact that the Padres keep flip-flopping on what they want to do discourage you? They just seem like they haven't even talked internally to set a plan in action yet. He's on the block, he's off the block. He's on the block, he's off the block.
Can I just jump in there? Do we know that for a fact? Do we know that for a fact? Because any good organization will not play their cards publicly through the media. Any organization will not play their cards.
You never know what the hell they're thinking about,
right?
But does the?
I think they have a game plan. I do. I don't trust that they don't have a game plan. I think that they're playing it coy, because it's smart for them to play it coy, because if they make it openly known that Soto is available, even though it's the worst kept secret that he can be acquired, then they're not going to get the kind of value that they can get if they play it coy and go, we're more than willing to go into the season with him and play and see how it plays out. He's such a good player, right? They're not going to lose that way. There's a no-lose situation in that regard. So they have to play it coy, in my opinion. I think that they do know what they're doing behind the scenes. It's only, we're only going by what the media is telling us. And I don't think that I don't think the Padres are that dumb, whether they would play with a losing hand in these trade negotiations. You've got an A+++++ player. You know what I mean? You have to be smart with that.
NFP, what do you think?
Well, it's like I said earlier, I don't see Soto as a starter on the Padres next year. I do not see that. Again, the Padres are in financial trouble, so you would think that they would be looking for a team to trade with so they can let go of that salary. The Yankees have the players to trade for Soto. The Yankees can trade for Soto. They should trade for Soto. We keep talking about it. He's a generational player. There's not a player after him that's going to be at that same level as Juan Soto. And I mean, imagine him playing for the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. He's a lefty bat. He's perfect for that right field porch. And not to mention the Dominican community that's out there. Can you imagine what that looks like? So I think he gets traded, whether it's the Yankees or some other team. He's going to get traded. I don't see the point of the Padres holding on to him and let's say him getting traded at the deadline next year. That really doesn't make sense. Then at that point, they're not going to get as much back. So, and then if they don't trade him at the deadline, then he's going to walk in free agency. So he's not going to sign back if he makes it that far. But it doesn't make sense. And for them to say that he's part of the plan, I think it's just to create some buzz and
exactly.
I
think it's them playing their cards.
Exactly, and they want
something that Brian Cashman doesn't do.
Yeah, and they want teams to react to that and be like, oh no, we want this guy. Like, here's what we'll give you.
Well, that's what I was just going to add in.
Yeah, and
I think it's a play to have teams overspend, and hit the panic button and give up more than his value really is set. So if you might see teams just start throwing. All right, we'll let this, we'll let this prospect, we'll let that prospect, and next thing you know, it's you're getting one player for 8, and you're sending 8 people over there for a 1-year rental, even if it is Juan Soto. Rob, what do you think?
I've said it several times. Juan Soto would be my top choice if he's available. We just don't know yet. Because Padres say no, Buster Olney says yes. I don't really trust Buster Olney anymore. So I'll just wait and see. I just don't want this to become a Brian Reynolds situation again. That's what I've been saying the entire time. I don't want it to be a Brian Reynolds situation. If they wait and they miss out on a trade with St. Louis, or they miss out on even a Bellinger or even a Kiermaier, if they miss out on getting guys that can help them next year, and they roll into next season with an outfield of, all right, well, we're going to play Stanton a lot, and we're just going to put Florial in center, and Judge, of course. We're going to run into the exact same issues we did this year. They can't afford to wait. So they have to call San Diego and be like, look, are you moving him? What's it going to take? And unless San Diego says, okay, we'll make that deal, unless you blow them away, I think it's another Brian Reynolds situation where the Padres, they can wait till the deadline if they want to, because they can move Cronenworth and a couple of other guys, and they can shed that money they're trying to shed. It'd take a while. It would probably be a lot more difficult than moving Soto, but they can still find a way to move that money and still be very competitive next year. But if the Yankees, that's got to be their first thing. Like, they should be talking to San Diego right now. And if it becomes obvious they're not going to move him unless they're absolutely blown away, the Yankees have to pivot. As much as I want Soto, they can't be like, it's Soto or nothing, because last year it was Reynolds or nothing, and look where it got us. Franchi Cordero. So I don't want to deal with that again. If it's look, as great as it would be to have him in the Bronx and right next to Aaron Judge in that lineup, if it cost us the chance to get an actual threat to this lineup like a Bellinger, or going to St. Louis and getting Donovan in another one of those guys, the Yankees have to be smart here. They have to pivot quickly if they can't get Soto. They can't just be like, it's Soto or nothing, and we're going to have to roll with what we have next year, because I don't want to see Cabrera in the outfield again. I don't want to see IKF in the outfield again. I want an actual outfield this time. So they have to be smart here. If you can get Soto, if San Diego's like, we're willing to listen, and you blow them away and you get him, fantastic. You checked off your first box this offseason. But if you can't do it, they're playing hardball, pivot. Go to Bellinger. If you can't get him, go to St. Louis. Do it. You got to be quick. They said they're going to be active. Be active. And don't take your foot off the fucking pedal, because then you're going to be stuck with another disaster like 2023 was.
Well, I can't remember the last time Cashman had a successful pivot. He doesn't pivot well. He panics well. NFE, do you want to mute that? He panics well, and his pivots usually are quite disastrous, like the Josh Donaldson trade. So I don't know. I don't really trust the Yankees to do smart and pivot. That's not really Cashman's way of working. So, but Rob's point is very right. He does need to be smart. He does need to pivot, because he's going to have to juggle a lot of different scenarios quickly. And I don't know. I think you need a younger GM. You need a smarter GM for that, because he's spot. Rob's spot on with that. It's just, do I trust Cashman to do that? No. But also, nor can you panic and make a bad move. I think there was an element of arrogance with the way that we went to the Pirates, and we thought that we could just get Brian Reynolds for nothing, without giving up the major prospects that was required to make a Brian Reynolds deal. And the Pirates were just like, fine, I'll just give him a new contract then. I think we were arrogant, because we thought, hey, the Pirates, they never pay their guys. They never pay their top guys. We'll get them. Right? Brian Reynolds wants to come here. He doesn't want to stay. We got it. And I think we came in with an element of arrogance, which we did also with Garrett Cole negotiations, and from the same GM, Brian Cashman. Right? So I think he goes into some negotiations quite arrogant, especially with organizations which are fairly cheap, like the Pirates are. And once again, he failed. He failed to get Garrett Cole in the trade negotiations with the Pirates, and he failed to get the trade negotiation with Brian Reynolds. It's a similar story with Brian Cashman. He goes in with arrogance, because he's like, oh, I'll give you, $2.50 for your best player. You know what I mean? I think that's just the way he does it. It's just pretty shitty. And the Pirates are just like, fine, I'll just re-up him. I don't think he could go into a Padres deal with that kind of arrogance, because the Padres always outspend the Yankees now, and always seem to get the best players now, unlike the Yankees. So the Yankees can't really play that arrogant card. They just got to be like, right, what's it going to take to get Soto, and then just be willing to make that price. Do I think Brian Cashman matches that price? I don't trust Brian Cashman. So
I don't think any of us do. Because the other problem is, and we've all said it. Every live stream says this. All our friends that do shows say the same thing. He overvalues his prospects, where they're the best players that are going to be coming into the game, but aren't trading better players. Aren't trading them for better players. He holds them so freaking tight that they can't breathe.
Correct.
It's time to start letting some of these guys go. It's who was it? Steven brought in that maybe promote Cashman to a made-up position and get Kim to be Kim Yang to be the GM. Here's the other thing: like, we keep bringing up how call Miami, well, Kim Yang is not there anymore. Do the new guys want him as much as she did? So Miami might not have the same interest as they did last season. That ship might have sailed. Does that throw a wrench, a problem into with the three-way trade that we brought up, and Hector even brought up the same idea with a three-way trade with Miami and San Diego.
Well, I think
Just
there's one
whatever-
less team that's willing to negotiate with Brian Cashman. I don't think teams like to negotiate with Brian Cashman. I think he's.
No, I really don't.
I think other teams respect him, but I think other teams think he's an arrogant
They
asshole.
don't like doing business with him at all.
And yeah, I don't think a lot of teams like to do business with him. The Marlins are one less probably now. That Kim's no longer there. It makes sense.
Let's get into a little bit of the the interview or the reach out to David Ross as the bench coach. I really like the idea of David Ross sitting with Boone, somebody that actually may have a little bit of maturity and hold players accountable. But his goal is to also be a manager. If he gets brought into the Yankees, let's take that position first. Say they hire him. How short is Boone's leash? Anything?
Long.
Yeah, so I mean, I
Long.
would welcome
Infinitely.
David Ross. I will welcome David Ross to the team, definitely as a bench coach. But it was reported that he's more interested in being a manager.
Yeah.
But if he was to be the bench coach and be a potential replacement for Boone, assuming that the Yankees have another disastrous season, I'd welcome it. It's Boone's final year next year, so I mean he does have a 2025 option, but if they have another bad year, there's no way they're going to exercise that option. Boone's gone after 2024 if they have a bad year.
Okay,
I would
turned
love
it
it.
down.
I mean, David Ross would be awesome, man. I would love to have that guy on the team.
Me too. I think the title's a little misleading. David Ross turned us down.
Well, that didn't come out until this morning. So,
Well, no, there was an
That's what-
article on The Athletic the other day where it said that he turned us down, and he's looking for managerial opportunities.
well, that's why I started the conversation the way I did. Do they try to get him as the bench coach to take over for Boone? Just get him into the organization while he's available. You know what I
They
mean?
should've just
That's
fired
the angle I'm kind of playing with.
Well, yeah, they should have just fired Boone and given David Ross the job. David Ross would be a much better manager than Boone.
Well,
But they should have done
look
was
what
gone
the-
after
look
Ron
who the
Washington.
GM is.
Like I don't know why they didn't go after Ron Washington. That was my top choice. Like the dude from a winning organization. The Angels went and got him, I think. So look,
Yeah,
I
he's their
think
manager.
I know the players like Boone, the guys in the organization like Boone, that's all fine and good. They're gonna give him another year, but he hasn't proven anything. I know he's got a couple of 100-win seasons under his belt, and he's got a good winning percentage and all that, but so did Girardi, and I couldn't stand Girardi, so he should have been let go. Like I don't hate Aaron Boone the way a lot of people hate Aaron Boone. I think he can be a lot better if he was given a chance to, and I just don't understand why they're waiting now to be like, hey, be more aggressive. I hate that. I think it's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Like they're like, hey, you've been here since 2018, but here in year 6 or 7, whatever it is, now we want you to be a little more aggressive. That should have been the thing from the get-go, but they're just basically admitting that he's a puppet, even though they said he wasn't a puppet. That's them admitting what we already knew for 6 goddamn years. Now they're finally like, well, hey, he was a puppet. Now we want to take the strings off a little bit. So I don't know what they're doing here. But bringing in a former manager to be his bench coach it's not going to look good for Boone. I don't think Boone's going to really want that either, because it's like he would kind of figure that's his replacement that is sitting next to him on the bench anyway. I don't know if he's going to be too.
So what? Put the pressure on him. Fuck him.
You're not going to say fuck
You know
him
what I
when you're the ones. The Yankees are bringing him back. The Yankees are the ones that love him.
Yeah.
They're not going to say fuck you. We're going to put whoever we want next to you. Like you're talking about Hal Steinbrenner and Brian Cashman. They love him. So if they want to get a really good baseball mind next to him, that's great. But like I don't think losing Mendoza was a big deal anyway. So I don't know who they can bring in as the bench coach. I know Ross isn't going to take it though. The man wants to be a manager, and I think he should be.
No, I know that.
So
My instinct tells-
I read an article on The Athletic that the options that we would then pivot to with David Ross probably more than likely going to look for a managerial position. We're interested in Brad Ausmus, who managed Detroit to 2 winning seasons.
Okay.
And he had 190 win season, Brad Ausmus. So he's one option that we're looking at. Another option would be to promote our third base coach, the ex-manager of the Mets, to be our bench coach. Those are the 2 main options that we're looking at. As for Rob's point that the players love Aaron Boone, from what I understand, Joel Sherman came on the Michael K show and he said that the main people who Hal Steinbrenner asked as to whether to bring back Aaron Boone was Nick Swisher and Andy Pettit. And my biggest question is, why is Nick Swisher the first name to go to with regards to asking if Aaron Boone should come back? And is Nick Swisher going to be a guy that's going to be straight up honest and go, no, he's not the guy? I think that Aaron Boone is protected massively, right? I mean, a lot of ex-players are not going to call him out necessarily because they're not going to sit in the locker room and watch him manage in and out. They're just going to be like, it's not really his fault. Brian Cashman gave him a shit roster, which is partly true. And then, then he asks Aaron Judge, who's basically a front office member now, Aaron Judge. And again, Aaron Judge is not going to be completely the right guy to ask either because they're friends. So Hal Steinbrenner screwed himself with that, right? If he really has the balls and the gumption and he knows that Aaron Boone ain't the guy, he has to make that decision himself, but he's scared to make a decision. He doesn't want to make a decision. He doesn't want to fire anyone. He will look for excuses not to fire people, right? Brian Cashman was never going to fire Aaron Boone, ever. Not in a million years, because then it'll make him look bad. So that's why Hal Steinbrenner is such a, I don't know, he's such an empty owner. He says a bunch of things, but he never actually follows through on it. And FJ, I think Luis Rojas will be the bench coach. I think he will be too. I think that's probably what they're going to do. And it makes sense. He's got a managerial experience. It kind of makes sense. But another point that Rob made, it is so silly asking Aaron Boone to be a different manager. Just hire a different manager if you want someone that's going to be more aggressive. You can't ask Aaron Boone to be different than what he is. He is not that guy. He is not that person. If he wants people to set people's asses on fire and go after them, he ain't that guy. He never has been that guy. That's why we hired him in the first place. You can't ask him to be something that he's not. And the only thing I'll disagree with Rob is I don't think he's that good a manager, even if you extended his leash on him, because the Yankees are always saying, oh, no, not every move he makes is purely analytical. Well, then he's just a terrible manager because the decisions that he's made are horrendous. Like the time that he chose to pitch to Ohtani, and then Ohtani walked off, and his excuse was, oh, 1 in 10 times he doesn't hit a home run. Or 9 times out of 10 he doesn't hit a home run. Well, that's a freaking stupid thing to say. So there's a lot of decisions that Aaron Boone makes out with the analytics stat book, and they always blow up in his face, and he never has an answer for it because he's not a good manager. So it's just fact. He's not a good manager.
I don't think they let him think for himself, and shame on him for not yelling, saying, hey, you hired me to manage this team. You get me the players. I'll worry about the play on the field, right? Because we were throwing compliments to him left and right when the Yankees went on that run 2 seasons ago. We were saying, "Wow, they're finally letting him manage his way." And look at the run that they went on. We were comparing them to the fucking '98 Yankees, and we were sitting here day after day with no complaints about how Boone was managing the games. Everything was falling into place. And we sat here and I accused Cashman of saying, well, you can't play with my toy anymore, and took all the control away from Boone. So is it really Boone, or is it Cashman not trusting his boy? The guy that he even brought in himself. It's not like he inherited this fucking manager. Is it really all Boone, or is it the way Boone is allowed to manage? He just doesn't have the balls to speak up for himself.
Well, even then, that's not a good thing.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not
Manager that
trying
has
to
the balls to
say that
stand up
Boone
for
is
himself.
not, no, Boone's done a lot wrong. I'm not saying that, but we saw we were given a taste in that first half of what he could be when he's allowed to just manage the team, go with his instinct, use the books for a pregame plan, but adjust, because he was making a lot of adjustments with substitutions, late inning bullpen moves, where everything was clicking.
Yeah, but that was
The
a good
players
team
were-
back then.
The
It was
players
better
were
than this one.
Yeah, but the thing with Bone is he took over from a team from Girardi that was one game away from the World Series. And the one thing that we all keep bringing up, and rightfully so, is after every season, the team has gotten worse and worse and worse. This past offseason, they adjusted the rules to improve the offense across the game. The Yankees' offensive numbers went down. That is that's an organizational thing. That's a foundational problem.
Correct.
From the owner to the manager, not so much the players.
But let's also look at it, and Tats, you're going to have a T-shirt soon about it. What was Aaron Boone's big idea? We need to bunt more. So does that sound like a manager who's really in touch with with how to improve this team?
If I see Aaron Judge drop one bunt next year, I'm going to flip out.
As Tats is saying, offense is off. We want offense, and he's like, "Oh well, we need to bunt more." I mean, if
he's going to have Aaron Judge
like a guy that if you give him a bigger leash, that he's going to somehow get that fixed by bunting more. He's just as clueless as Brian Cashman in a different way.
I just want to I want to say one thing, and I want to get NFE's opinion about the whole Boone situation after it. The Yankees didn't bunt when there was a shift. Now that there's no shift, they want to start bunting. So there's your whole. That explains the Yankees as a whole right there. They didn't have Teixeira do it when they had nobody on the left side of the infield. Cano didn't do it except for that one time against the Red Sox, and he got a double out of it, and they never did it again. Now, your idea, well, we need to increase offense. Let's bunt with who? Anthony Rizzo? The guy who you let play for 2 months with a concussion, he's going to drop a bunt. He can't run. Maybe you'll have Stanton bunt next. Here, you can use his Walker to first base. What are we doing here? You have maybe two guys that can actually bunt and get a hit out of it. That's Volpe and Peraza, and you don't play Peraza, so you have one. You have one guy.
Or Florial for that.
Yeah, you have two of the most powerful hitters in the entire sport, and your idea to increase your offense is to bunt? No, you should just want to get these guys healthy and make sure they're healthy. NFE, give your opinion about Boone here.
Yeah, so look, I don't think Boone is the best manager, clearly. I don't think he's the worst. I do feel as though he can't run the team the way he wants to. I think he's got way too many people telling him what to do. I'm with Tats on that. I'm not saying he makes all the correct decisions. He makes a lot of bad decisions, but this year though, he was given a roster of bad players where he's just like, okay, here you go, Boone, like work with this. And the guy's like, what do I do? That's why you were seeing all these different lineups and seeing all these random names. I keep talking about the Fantastic Four of Frenchie Cordero, Bowers, McKinney, and Calhoun. That I refer to them as the Fantastic Four because they were supposed to be the big saviors, but clearly they weren't. I hope he does well next year. I really do. I don't want him to do a bad job. Obviously, I mean, if he does a bad job, the team does a bad job. I know players have spoken positive of him, especially Aaron Judge. He was in Hal's ear this offseason. I know him, Hal, Cole, they all had that meeting. And Judge had a lot to say, which, I know we keep talking about this offseason and not trusting Brian Cashman. Do you all think that Hal is going to be more involved, and you think he'll override Cashman on certain things? I mean, the reason why I'm asking is because I don't think a team owner, a business owner, likes their name being thrown in the dirt, and I don't think they like their team being embarrassed the way they were this year, especially because Yankees are the greatest baseball team ever. Despite having some bad seasons, but when you look at it historically, right? But do you all think that do you think that Hal will be more heavily involved this offseason? Because it doesn't seem like him and Cashman are exactly on the same page, and with Hal listening to Judge and listen to what Judge has to say, that has to make Cashman a little bit nervous. And because if it's another disastrous offseason, and if they have a disastrous 2024, I mean, how do you I'm going to say this right now. I don't know how you keep Cashman. I wouldn't it doesn't make
I
sense.
think Cashman's feeling the strain. I think you're onto something, NFE. I think it's Cashman and Fishman on one side, and it's Hal and Aaron Judge on the other side. I do think that they're going in divergent paths. But Hal Steinbrenner is so afraid to stand up on his own accord and make a decision. He's not going to make a big drastic move. So it's going to go in a similar way as in the 90s with the Tampa contingent and the New York contingent, when it was George in the Tampa contingent and Cashman and Torrey in the New York contingent. I think that there's going to be a similar divergent path in that regard. It's just the only difference is Hal Steinbrenner does not hold anybody accountable. But I think Aaron Judge has a little bit too much power right now. You need to make decisions out with a player. But it is very interesting. And the worst possible thing for Brian Cashman is that Aaron Judge is on the other side, because he's now pissed off a number of legends. Reggie Jackson can't stand Brian Cashman, for one, right? But forget about him. Jorge Posada can't stand him. And Derek Jeter can't stand him. And now Aaron Judge can't stand him. Right? So Brian Cashman's already on a loser right there. Aaron Judge has a ton of power here, and he's going to wield it. And he's going to be in Hal Steinbrenner's ear. That's just a fact. Brian Cashman already has an attitude about the fact that he had nothing to do with the negotiations with Aaron Judge. We all know that. I think it's quite clear. I think that's partly why Brian Cashman acted so unhinged and unglued during that press conference, because he's feeling the strain, because he's feeling that not everyone's on the same page and he doesn't have that same power as he did before, because he's done such a bad job. The power is being slowly taken away from him. But Hal Steinbrenner is such a, I don't know, he's so spineless that he still gave him a 4-year deal. And that's where there's a big problem here. He gave him a 4-year deal despite not being all in on him.
When you look at the track record of the Yankees' success, though, Hal has had pretty much nothing to worry about. Aside, obviously except for the World Series appearance. But this team was highly competitive every year. The only team that we really couldn't match up to was the Astros. So you only had one obstacle out of 29 others that was a serious threat, for most of the last 5 seasons. The playoff money was coming in. I think this year not making the postseason and losing those ticket sales, I still believe, despite of the way that Hal came off very kind of passive and really didn't give much substance, I still think that he's going to take a big role this offseason. I still stand by that. And he's not going to the GM. He's not going to his manager. He's going to the face of his organization. And Aaron Judge going, all right, what do you feel will get us to where we need to go? And I'll handle the business side from that point. Is this what we're seeing? The start of? God.
Yeah. So to what Donald was saying, to what you just said, Judge is going to have a lot of power. Why? Because he could have easily gone to San Diego last year. They were offering him way more money. They offered him $400 million. I'm like, oh my God, if they're offering this guy $400 million, he's definitely going. But he wants to be a Yankee. I mean, that was clear. He wants to be a Yankee, and he didn't sign some long-term contract to be on a losing team and to be an embarrassment. Like there's no way. Like I'm pretty sure that's what he may have said to Hal. Like, hey, this is not what I signed up for. I came back because I like being here and I like this organization. So, make something happen. Here's what we need to do. And Judge didn't hide how he felt. With a couple of interviews that he had, he made a mention of what needs to change and what needs to happen. He wasn't shy about it. He spoke well of Boone, not so much Cashman, but he did speak well of Boone. So just to throw that out there.
Yep.
No,
Your final take on it.
I think we talked about it last week. Donald brought it up that there's clearly disconnect in this front office that may not be reported on. But if you just read the body language of Hal during his Zoom call, he was very calm and collected, kind of, even though I hated the bunting thing. But everything else he said was like, all right, he said it was a disastrous year. We have to do this. We have to do that. And you're like, okay, I can get behind that. And then you look at Cashman, who was just fighting with Joel Sherman, and we're pretty fucking good and all this stuff. And he was just defending himself and kind of coming off like it's not my fault. It's not my fault. I didn't steal from the cookie jar, whatever it was. So he was he's feeling the pressure, I think. And I think this year, if it's another really bad season, he's going to be gone. They're not going to do it after 1 year of an extension. But if he has 2 years left, Hal might say, look, it's 2 years in a row. You got the option for Boone for 2025. It coincides a little bit. If Boone's gone, maybe Cashman's gone. Maybe that's what he's waiting for. I don't think Hal Steinbrenner can deal with back-to-back non-playoff seasons. You saw how empty that stadium was in September, even with some of the kids coming up. That hit him. And that hit him where it hurts the most, and that's his wallet. And people don't – I think he does care. And I've said this several times. He cares because he doesn't want to lose money. He may not care necessarily if they're winning a World Series every year, but he wants to make money, and he definitely cares because he doesn't want to hear people. He doesn't want to see his name in the newspapers. He might tell you 10 times a week, I don't read it. I don't read it. I don't read it. He reads it. Bullshit. He knows. He knows what people are saying about him. He's not stupid. So there's definitely something going on here in this front office, and for the sake of this team, they have to get on the same page soon, because you cannot, if it's Cashman, Levine, and his clowns on one side, and it's Hal and Judge on the other, I guarantee you Hal and Judge are going to have a better offseason than the other guys would. They got to get on the same page, because this team's going to be an absolute train wreck again if they don't, because they're not going to make anything happen. Because Hal could say, let's just say I want Bellinger, and Brian's Cashman going to say, yeah, but do you trust him after only one good season? It's just going to be heads butting. And if you do that, guess who's going to be our left fielder next year?
Right, but you say that he cares, but he wasn't there at the big meetings. He asked for somebody to take minutes. He wasn't there. He's like, oh, I heard that there was a lot of stuff going on. And I'm reading through the notes. Uncle Tats pointed that out, and Pete pointed that out. So if you're the owner of a team, why are you not sitting with when all the coaches and everybody involved in the organization and Brian Cashman were going at it behind closed doors? Isn't that something that your owner should be doing? So he didn't do that, right? And he also said that he wasn't aware of the discussions that Brian Cashman had with the analytics team and the pro scouts as to how to approach this offseason. He's like, I know that they've had these discussions. I'm not privy to them. I'll find out in a couple of weeks. Does that sound like someone who's really that logged in? He doesn't care that much, man.
Have a good connection with his
he
GM.
needs to be locked in. He needs to be logged. He needs to go to these freaking meetings. If either of us were the owner, the New York Yankees, we'd be like going to all these meetings, or it would be a Zoom call, and I'd be sitting in all of them. And I'd be like, right, what is going on with you guys, right? Brian Cashman, you've done a freaking joke of a job, right? How are you going to fix this, right? He isn't going to these meetings. So I'm sorry. I don't think he cares that much. I think he cares a little bit. But if he really freaking cared, he would have made decisions. He would have stand up in his own volition, and he would have made some tough calls. He's scared to make the tough calls. So I don't think he came across that much better than Brian Cashman, but what I will say is at least he alluded to the fact that the season was a disgrace. Brian Cashman wouldn't do that because Brian Cashman is feeling the pressure. He is feeling the pressure, and he's feeling it from all angles. He feels like the walls are closing in, and he acted like a little baby. And he started screaming and crying and sticking his fingers in his ears, and huffing and puffing like a kid at Toys R Us. So neither party are too high on my list right now, but Brian Cashman made a complete joke of himself. I want to find out whether we ever hear of how the organization felt about Brian Cashman's press conference, because it was universally a joke. Like, the whole baseball world is now looking at Brian Cashman thinking he's a freaking lunatic, right? If it gets to the point where Michael Kay, his biggest defender, goes, that's a horrible look for the Yankees, you have to wonder what Hal Steinbrenner and the rest of the Yankees are thinking. This is a Yankee team that doesn't allow you to have a freaking goatee beard. I wouldn't even be allowed anywhere near the Yankee front office with this. Neither can Rob, right? Neither can NFE, right? So, right? So they're that buttoned up, yet they're going to allow your general manager to come in swearing and freaking calling everybody out and acting like a deranged lunatic. I highly doubt that. I'd be very interested to find out whether there's going to be an Athletic article saying, sources say that the Yankees were not very happy with Brian Cashman's press conference. I'd be very interested.
There might be. We don't know because it's been oddly quiet since that press conference.
Yeah.
There's a lot of noise. There was a lot of noise before the two of them spoke, and all of a sudden there's been nothing. Like, nothing. There was the David Ross rumor, and that's it. So maybe there is something going on there. Maybe Hal is kind of like, why? Maybe he didn't know about the analytics meeting or whatever. It's possible. I'm not trying to defend him completely because he's not absolved of all the blame here because he's the guy who put the GM in charge for 25 fucking years. But maybe there is something going on here because Hal's like, dude, you're making a fool of us. So there could be some closed door meetings that we don't know about right now. And it might not come out. Sometimes these things don't come out unless it gets leaked. And I don't think Cashman's going to leak. Well, he could. Cashman is very, very petty. So it's possible this could come out in another week. Another week from now, you could see that Athletic article, or Joel Sherman could have something on the post. So we don't know yet. But I feel like Hal looked at that press conference and was like, what the fuck are you doing right now? I feel like this is not a good look. It's not a good look, and it's not a good thing because this offseason is very important, and it's gotten off to a terrible start, and we haven't made a single move yet. So it could be a rocky road.
Fired right after that press conference.
That's what I said. So if that was me, I'd pull him in my office and I'm like, you're done. Get the fuck out. Yep. This is, even though that we suck right now, there's still a prestige, that the Yankees have, that aura, that ambiance about them, that they are, like Rob said, buttoned up, and they always come on, they're the professional ones. It's, it's getting me nervous that it's been so quiet, though. And I don't think, I don't know if because there's something, coming to kind of get those interviews off the narrative and off the talking block. I don't know yet. We're gonna have to wait and see. But that is going to wrap things up for us. Look, NFE, we really appreciate you coming and hang out with us today. As you know, you're welcome back anytime. But this has been a phenomenal show just to kick off the week. I want to thank everybody in the chat. We got Mr. Barrows, Jonathan, Deb, TC Steels in the house. We had Davey. We had Medina. Yankee Kyle came in for a little while. Just everybody. We appreciate you all. The off season is, as you can see, not slowing us down.
Nope.
So if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video out. Let's get this community to continue to grow. You guys are a big force behind us doing what we do. And as I always say, wear those pinstripes with pride and play hard.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.